I'm playing the multi-billion-dollar game. I was meant to do what I'm doing.
Would you want to be a Mark Zuckerberg in that case?
It's not even a question we can even ask. You burn bridges, you burn people, you burn yourself, and is it worth it? You just have to ask yourself, like, when is enough enough?
My guest today is Josh Payne. He's the founder of Stack Commerce and Onward. Stack had a 9-figure exit, and Onward has grown to 13 million run rate in about 2.5 years. He's also the general partner of Open Sky Ventures. We dig into its insecurities, the 10-year journey to be a strong enough founder to even found Stack, the push and pull between being utterly obsessed, passionate founder while also not killing yourself and having your identity become your business. He coined the term seed strapping. So if you want to know what it means to build a successful, profitable company where you can still own 80+% or more, join us for this conversation. I personally found this fascinating as it felt a little bit like looking in the mirror. As Josh and I both moved to Silicon Valley at about the same time, we both worked for Sequoia-backed startup when we first moved here, and then started, in his terminology, the founder hybrid investing model, where founders also investing at the same time in companies that they meet and get to know. I'm Adam Spector, 4-time founder, investor in 200+ startups, and CEO of Shore. We help founders outsource operations so they have more time, which is frankly the only finite resource in the universe. Let's dive in. Welcome to the next episode of the Entrepreneurial Excellence Podcast. It is with a ton of pleasure. I have Josh Payne with me here today, best CEO in LA, although you're not in LA anymore. You're down in Nashville, 4X winner of Best Place to Work.
You're making me blush. All right, let's...
Good. I mean, I think there's a little bit more, right? And then also, if I'm correct as well, you're also the general partner at Open Sky Ventures, so doing a ton of investments. So what did I miss, or what parts make you blush the most?
No, I think you got us covered. No, it's good. I appreciate that.
No, this is awesome, right? It's so rare actually to find founders who've had like pretty massive exits, right? So maybe give people, before we get started, I'll get too off track if I don't ask this right off the bat. I try to ask everybody, define for me what entrepreneurial excellence means to you. Like, what does it mean to be an excellent entrepreneur in your mind?
It's a great question, and it's one that I think I still wrestle with all the time, right? Like, I think one of the hardest things, I've been listening a lot to Jesse Pujji and Dave Cashin, who is his coach, and really thinking a lot about that, right? Because it's like, we're all driving so hard, and it's like, you kind of come up with a specific number or a specific milestone, and it's like, well, why that one? And I've recently been thinking about, like, maybe that should be a little bit more fluid, as opposed to saying to ourselves, oh, hey, like, $100 million exit and I'm validated, like, that's the right number. If it's 70 million, well, then not good enough, or I mean, that's exaggerating, but like, the point is, yeah, I've been trying to come up with that. And I think for me, I'm working on myself to shift the answer from being a specific number or outcome, more of an internal fulfillment, right? And like, exec coaches have a good way of creating frameworks to help you figure out, well, like, what is the desired future state? And that's just something that, like, it's sort of been, what I realized was I was keeping myself on this perpetual treadmill intentionally or subconsciously, I would say, right? And it's like, and then, it kind of stuck my head up. And even in this new venture, we're doing great, right? But we have bad quarters, bad months, bad days. And then you feel like you're back on that hamster wheel. And, I think in some of these exercises, I try to take a step back and say, okay, like, where do I want to be? Why do I want to be there? How does it feel? How would it feel if I were there? As a gut check to make sure that there is a stopping point. There is a place where, where you're going to feel good about this. Because the worst thing, and that's happened to me in the past, is you get to a place, saying like I win, I'm happy for 2 minutes, and then it's like, shit, like, yeah, I guess I have another tournament to try to go win, right? And so it's like finding purpose and mission in the journey, in the daily. And I was trying to think about it even this morning, like, hey, could I be fulfilled? Could I be happy even if I don't get the outcome that I'd like, right? Like, even if this company doesn't exit ever or shuts down, is there a way that I could find fulfillment and happiness in that? I was really struggling with it, because I think generally my whole life, the answer has been absolutely not. Like, not even a question. Like, no,
The only way to find fulfillment was it had to be a huge hundreds of $1 million exit or $1 billion exit. Like that's the way you found definition of fulfillment.
I would actually say I've never been a $1 billion exit type of person. Like, but like, your initial question was like, what is a win? And for me, the win prior had been like to be a really efficient steward of capital and to provide like what I consider to be a great return for any investors and employees and myself. And so, kind of just using market standards like, oh, hey, I want to return 10 times my investors' money, or I personally want to make, this much, whatever, 30 to $50 million, but like, had my first startup gone differently, I think it would have devastated me. And I guess what I've been coming to terms, or what I've been trying to come to terms with is like, I'd like to be in control of my own destiny. Like, and it feels like sometimes we let our startups control our locus of control, like our inner state. And when that thing gets haywire, like we get haywire. And I'm like, man, is there a way, even as a second time founder, I exited, we did well, we're set up. I still wrestle with this, it's like still don't feel okay necessarily if the business is not okay. And it's like, well, what's the worst that could happen? I don't know. And the worst that could happen, the scenarios still sound pretty bad to me, so I'm trying to figure out, okay, like, well, how can we make it not feel so bad?
What has been your conclusion? Like how to make it either not feel so bad, or like as a founder, there's probably some element of every founder, it doesn't matter if it's a tech company or any other company, where you have to be like deeply wrapped into it. Like it becomes your identity. Yeah. Do you have any chance at success, once quote unquote, however you want to define it, you have to be wrapped up in it. So how do you be wrapped in it, build something that's successful, but also be okay with like the chance of there being failure?
That's a great question. I mean, I can tell you as an investor, I certainly do look for people that are obsessed. I mean, the ones that, you're just like, oh, wow, she's a killer. Like she's going after this. She's eating it, breathing it, sleeping, that's who I want to put my money behind. So like, it's hard. I can only speak for me personally, but, but look, Onward is a great company as an example. It's done really well. It's profitable. We're, like I said, we've grown a ton. We've actually been around probably for about 2.5 years now, and gone from 0 to 13 million run rate, good margins. And I've tried my best to do it on this new platform, this new style. I still work really hard, but I'm trying to not get my identity wrapped up in it. Is that, could that affect the outcome? Yeah. I think it could. I think you need to know. So then you and your investors and your team need to be aligned on what game are we playing, right? Like I talked to a founder out of San Francisco yesterday. He's pretty young. I think he's in sort of mid-20s. And he was like, I'm playing the multi-billion-dollar game. Like my team, me and my investors, we are all playing that game. And like, we are going for it.
It's really like die trying, or like we're going to die trying, basically.
Yeah. And we're going to raise a ton of money, and, like it's lighting cash on fire. And I think that's a great way to go if everyone's aligned and that's what you want to do. And like, hey, this is going to be multi-billion or zero. Cool. Then there's other people like me who, so far I've gone for this capital efficient method of saying, hey, if we raise less money or don't raise any money at all, and we sell for 50 million, and there's only 10 of us working at the company, and we have, one seed investor who they got in at a 5 million cap because we weren't going to raise much money and we only raised 500 or something. It's just a win for everyone, and like from a multiples basis. And I guess you just have to ask yourself, like, when is enough? And for some people, a billion is enough. And for other people, it's 5 million or 10 million, and I like playing the game that I'm playing. I enjoy it. Like, I feel really comfortable there. I don't know that I would be a good founder who's trying to do a deca-billion-dollar startup. Like, I don't know how to light money on fire. It's not in my nature, like, so I think you need to be honest with yourself, your team, and your investors of like, who am I? Like, what's like, how do I like to operate? Like, some people are like, I like to operate fast, take risk, I'm going to be the next whatever. And I don't think we have invested in, so Open Sky Ventures has invested in a lot of people who have this sort of seed strapping mentality.
Yeah.
Um,
You came up with that term, right? You basically coined that term.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. I mean, because I came up with it like 10 or 15 years ago. So it's getting really popular now.
Why don't you define it for people?
Yeah. So the way I define it is I remember I had, there were a lot of people back in that era, 10, 15 who were bootstrapping, but I had raised this small seed round of 750 and I never felt authentic or honest running around saying I was a bootstrapper, even though that's really effectively how I was running my company. We were profitable. I really never touched the seed money, but I just like didn't feel in good conscience I could say I was a bootstrapper because I had taken some money. And so I just started using this term seed strapping. And so what I think it means is you take one round of funding. It could be 500, or it could be, I mean, depending on the scale of the company, it could be 5 million, right? And it's a one-time funding scenario, and then you're either profitable or you get profitable, and you never raise again. And you run it capital efficiently, and there's with an efficient growth curve, I think.
And so now are you seeing that becoming, you said, more popular, you think, or are there just as many people who are also saying, you know what, I'm only way to go is raise a big round. I need to go do that and go.
I think it depends on your environment, and seeing a lot more people go the capital efficient route, especially with AI, right? So it's either pure bootstrap or seed strap. I've had a couple of posts on LinkedIn, go viral around it. I got it hit up by CNBC and The Information and some other people, just because I think it kind of touched a nerve with people. And so I think because of AI, because of offshoring, you really can be so much more efficient today than 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So that's the thesis of Troy, my company, right? Is that why would you ever build an internal operations team when you can outsource it to people who are better and lower cost? So I totally agree with that. And so going back to what you're doing at Onward, right? Like how are you then trying to make sure the company is achieving levels of success without it becoming something that is fully about your identity? Like what are you doing as a leader that's maybe different than what you did at Stack Commerce, or that you see other founders do who are trying to build a multi-billion-dollar company?
Yeah. One of the things that I've been talking a lot about with the team and just myself is this journey of personal development. I'm really big on my own personal development journey because I feel like I've come from such a place of insecurity, trying to find that wholeness within myself. And so, I've leveraged therapists, and I've leveraged executive coaches, and I've leveraged, that's why I do Ironmans. You're kind of right, seeking all these things to help you along this personal development and fulfillment journey. And so I thought, well, like, I wonder if people on my team would also appreciate, or other people going through a similar type of journey, trying to figure out what matters to them, and I think I don't want work just to be like, work can be so much more assistant or growth development thing for people and teammates than just kind of coming in and punching out. So like for us, we do these offsites. We bring in people that can help. We bring in coaches who can help people push their boundaries, whether it's around, hey, I've always wanted to write social content on X or LinkedIn, but I'm scared. And we get them a writing coach and figure out how to get them past that. Or, hey, I've always wanted to do a marathon, but like, I don't know where to start. I need a partner. I need a buddy. I need a way, and so we can bring someone in, who's an online marathon coach, and they like coach them through that. Or people that get stuck in their own way. They're not growing in their role. We can bring in a junior exec coach to coach them through that. Right. And so I think what I've found is that when you build sort of like a community in your company, you want to see people. I mean, I want to make people better spouses and parents and humans through what we learn at work. Because we learn all these lessons and how to interact better and play better, and we get smarter. And it's like, what I notice is that when someone's home life is not good for whatever reason, they don't show up very well at work.
100%.
And that's it's not a knock on. It's just like, look, like all of us go through it. Like, if I'm having troubles with my spouse, it's going to show up, and if my kids are happy, that's going to show up, right? Like I'm going to be happy. And so, like Like I like to think about how can I impact this person's whole life positively through what we do at work, you know?
So just to play devil's advocate a little bit, right? I mean, it sounds very spot on in ways like everything you're describing. And I think a lot of founders would say, well, okay, you didn't mention anything about becoming more effective at your job, or how do you create a culture that can move really quickly and get answers. And yet you built two companies that have grown really, really fast and done these things. Like, what is that element where it's like, hey, we can build a great culture where I want to help people become better humans, but also enable a company that can grow really fast? And I think part of Onward's thesis is like really fast responses. Like it sounds like you're always on essentially. So how do you blend the two to create this successful culture?
Yeah, it's a great question because they do sometimes get at odds. Like, hey, like and it's not necessarily about it's not the dichotomy of like vacation versus work or on versus off. It's more about the blend of like wherever I am I feeling good? All of us at work have an impact on each other. It's like response times and your ability to show up kind of depends on how you feel, and it's like I mean, I don't know. I think there is education development, there's process development. We work really hard on having great process, being open to innovation around automation, AI, whatever, to be able to like level up our skills. So for me, it's not necessarily like pushing back and forth on this boundary of like more time away from work or less time away from work. And I'm not necessarily just trying to think like, oh, how do I make this person more proficient at work? Mm-hmm. I think if we level ourselves up from a holistic standpoint, then you get better outcomes in work and out of work.
I'm going to ask this a little bit differently to keep pushing at this a little bit with you, but what advice at Open Sky do you give to your investments, right? So on one hand, you're looking for this obsessed and killer, and just going to go do everything to get there, and probably not care about a lot of other people beyond saying like, look what I can get done. You better follow me, or like you're not going to last you very long. On the other hand, you're like, but I want everyone to I want to build great people at my company. So what advice do you give those founders you're investing in who are kind of who on one hand are taking your money, but on the other hand, you want them to be obsessed killers?
Yeah. I think what I try to tell them is you got to find the right way for you and your company to get the best out of people. The obsessed founder with a 20-hour a day, killer instinct, it works if you're building the next Apple. It works if you're working on OpenAI. But a lot of people know they're not working on the next OpenAI. And their incentives to you have this person chirping in their ear, 18 hours a day, like go faster, move, it becomes burdensome and it actually goes against, kind of thing, right? So I think it's like being self-aware of like, as a founder, yes, I agree. I do think you have to have the foundation of obsession as a founder. Like it's just, but how that manifests itself into time and work and metrics is unique to each company. But yeah, so what I tell people is like, I think it's about, you got to find the best way to get the best out of your people, and I think for different companies, it's going to be different, but part of it is like leveraging AI or offshore to give people, I call it like a super suit, like if you have an employee who is 10 grand, costs you as the founder 10 grand a month, and you can get an offshore person to work alongside them for 3, it's like a super suit. They go from being a solid middle person to being like, oh my gosh, like a total now. And then when you package their costs together, 13 a month, think about hiring 2 mid-level people for 8 grand a month. You know what I mean? It's a similar type of thing.
So, I mean, actually, I love the point that you're making about it. Essentially, it's like, know your company and then build your culture around that. So I agree, like way too many founders think they're building the next multi-billion-dollar like OpenAI company, when in reality, like most aren't, right? You're just not seeing that level of growth. And you'll know really quickly whether you are building that kind of company. That doesn't mean you can't have those great outcomes. And so, right, and this is maybe one of your other key points is like, most companies aren't going to be that billion-dollar outcome, but you as an investor can still have great outcomes, even if they're not that type of company. And you as a founder can even have even better outcomes. So like, how do you become real? Like, what are the heuristics of the founder you should like look at? Say, like, is my company going to be the next OpenAI, or are we going to be like the next like Stack Commerce? Which, for those who don't know, once again, like a massive 9-figure exit, like it was fantastic. You owned what 70-80% of the company or something when it exited. Like that's huge. Like that's a better outcome than most founders who have a co-founder and they exit for $1 billion or $2 billion. You probably took home more money than they did.
Right. So it's, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to play the game. It was very intentional with me, I didn't have a co-founder. We didn't raise a lot of money. I knew kind of the what that meant, and I knew that I could sell for 50 million and be stoked. I wanted the company to do as well as it could. I think what I would say I learned is that so much of this game is actually out of our control. And that's the part that's like really tough. I can remember just like when something changed with the Facebook algorithm and like there's nothing we could do. Like, and it was like the hardest year, of the business and then COVID hit and it was a good thing for us. And it swung us the other way and we absolutely crushed, and it's like, we were just there, and that's another thing I tell people all the time is like, this thing is so hard, but like I don't know what percentage, 70% of it is like literally staying in the game, just stay in the game. When the coach calls, coach being the macro environment, be ready, be prepared, have the products, and then there's like a window. There's a window for like, I see growth not happening like linear. Usually it's sort of like, okay, like we're stuck around and then something changes, something in the macro environment, like new platform pops up like OpenAI or COVID hits or tariffs. I don't know. Something it pops up or it pops down. A big chunk of your growth or your big chunk of your evolution happens in a very finite period of time. And it's about being ready when that moment happens.
Yeah. I think of it when you're describing that, I think for me, sort of baseball in a weird way comes to mind. I'm not a huge baseball fan, but it comes to mind where it's like, if I'm the baseball player, but I'm the bench warmer baseball player on a professional team, I still have a chance when someone gets hurt and I get called up, I have a chance to go play versus the 50,000 other people in the stadium with me. They're not even in the game. They're there to watch. They don't even have a chance at an at-bat. And at least I want to be one of the players on the team who has a chance. And yes, I've worked really hard to get there. And now I just wait for my chance. And if I'm ready and I'm practicing every day and I'm ready to go, when I get my chance, I might actually take off. But at least I'm there.
I also don't think it's crazy for us to sit here and just say like openly, like there are so many different ways to do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And before, during Stack Commerce and maybe even just even 3-4 years ago, I would have said like, hey, like you have to be obsessed. You have to work 20 hours a day. You like have to drive your team to the brink. And I do think that's it is a good way to build companies, but you burn bridges, you burn people, you burn yourself. And is it worth it? Like, I mean, for my first startup, it was like, I did all those things. I think I was even worse when the first half of it, because I was a little bit younger, I was an inexperienced manager. I didn't get great reviews from the team because I was just always like push. And then I was telling this story podcast today. I got married. We had a kid on the honeymoon, or got pregnant on the honeymoon. We had a kid. I had 3 kids in 5 years, and all of a sudden I was like, "Whoa!" Like now I understand what it means to not sleep and be a parent and have a doctor's appointment for my kid, and want to be home at 5:30 or 6 for dinner with my family. Like I just, if someone would have left at 6 p.m. in the early days, I'd be like, "Where are you going? Like, what are we doing? Like, we're here to build, But then later when I had my own kids, my own family, I developed that empathy. And, as I get older and older, I start to recognize, oh, wow, there's a lot of different ways to do this. And the other thing is to realize that a lot of us are playing different games. And when you're playing when you're not playing the OpenAI game, it's okay. Like, so let me tell this story real quick about, OpenSky, we invested in this company, Levanta, and it's public knowledge. They wrote about it. We wrote about it. Our first pre-seed investment was pre-product. We invested, and this is sort of the down times in like 2022. It's a little bit tougher market for founders, better market for investors. We invested at a 3 million cap, maybe even a little bit less. They raised $300,000, so it was like 10% dilution. They just needed enough money to get the product built, And this was a great founder that I knew from Stack, actually. I mean, it's kind of crazy. They 3 million cap. But he came, it was funny. So he came to us and he was like, hey, I think I have something. I don't know how long it's going to last, but like, I think we can build this to like a 30 million, maybe a $50 million exit in 3 years. And so like most investors like don't want to hear that,
No.
right? You're like 30 million, like, but he was saying, hey, but if I do this deal and I give you a 3 million cap and I sell at 30 million and you make a 10x in 2 or 3 years, the IRR for us is off the chart, right? It's an incredible IRR from a time perspective. It's a 10x on multiple invested capital. It's a great deal. Now, did we believe that could happen? We actually did kind of have confidence that that could happen. Well, look, six or I can't remember, 6-9 months later, something like that, product was in live. He was getting customers. He's like, guys, like it's growing a lot faster than I thought. I need another, 500 grand. So then he raised another 500 or like a 5 million cap. And we participated in that not 3, maybe 6 months after that. He's like, guys, this thing's still, we're still growing. We need more money. We're going to raise $1 million at 10. And he just kept going. And then the next round he raised, I think 20 at like I can't remember, 50, 60 million, something like that. Right. So like, it just kept growing. And I think the point of the story is you can start with one thesis. Like we started with this thesis of, hey, this is going to be a seed strap company. We're going to try to get a 10x in 2 to 3 years. We would be stoked with that. Turns out he's going to build a really big company. I mean, the company raised 20 or 25 million. I can't remember the round, but like it's a massive growth equity fund and they're shooting for a big exit now. And so there's an evolution of these things. So it doesn't mean necessarily if you don't get a huge valuation in the beginning that you're not going to build a big company. It doesn't, like there's a lot of things that changed in that story.
So I want to go back to one thing you mentioned, and I think a lot of founders feel this, that you said a lot of the decisions you made, especially early on, came from a place of insecurity. Walk me through what that meant for you as an early founder. Why did you have that insecurity? Where did that come from? And then sort of walk me through that and maybe what led you to start Stack Commerce. Like, why did you start a company in the first place? And then how did that help push you or hurt you?
Yeah, I think a lot of founders are building to heal a wound. As I said, I used the word insecurity, but for me, I think it's about filling some sort of hole that we feel inside of ourselves, or something. Not everyone, but a lot, right? And whether it's Steve Jobs was famously adopted. I'm sure that played a part in his wound of his insecurity, right? So I think for me it was about I moved from a small town to San Francisco against the wishes of my family, and felt different than other people, and
like religious stuff, they felt different. Like, why did they not want you to move to San Francisco, or just like San Francisco is a scary
big scary city and away from them, and they were all living on small town, and hey, like, why are you leaving us? And who are you to do this? Like, who do you think you are? And,
then that's because you're moving.
Right. Just, all sorts of things like that. Right. And that was just for a short period of time. But like, I think when you feel different than the people that you're close to, and you feel this need to validate your identity. Yeah. So I think that's probably a big part of it. Right. And for me, it felt like failure. Like I remember I in some of these sessions, they're like, all right, let's get to the heart of it. And I was like, they're like, what would happen if you fail? And I'm like, I would die. Like I would feel internally death is like, that's how I felt. Yeah. I was like, if I, that's what
Your company, like Stack, had to survive, or others, like you would be dead basically inside.
Yeah. That's kind of where my head was at. I don't know if that sounds crazy, but it did sort of drive me to, I had that drive. I had that killer drive. But now I look back on it, I'm like, oh man, like that is bad fuel. That is like fuel that it burns fast and hot, moves you along.
Fuel, right? A lot of people don't even have any fuel to some extent. I made argue a lot of people don't have much fuel at all.
Correct. So, I mean, so I think it was good at the time. I think for where I'm at in life, and even yeah, the question is, can you do this thing as a first-time founder from a place of like wholeness and goodness, and I think you can, for sure. I just don't think a lot of us start there. I think a lot of us start from pain and are working towards like fulfillment, achievement in order to fill some goal, some gap or some hole. And that's what I'm working towards. Even on the second, I know all this stuff, and I'm still, still trying to figure it out, right? Like this is like the battle within the battle, right? Like all of this, by the way, is literally just in my head. Like this this is not stuff that comes up with the team or whatever, right? But like when I wake up or when I go to bed, like what are my motivations? And I want my motivations to come from a clean fuel place. I think when I lash out at the team or when there's not alignment, I think it comes from this place of fear or anxiety, which is that sort of bad fuel. I think the founders that are obsessed but burning bad fuel, like you can sideline a lot of relationships where it's not necessary,
No, it can be very messy. I mean, like obviously a lot of the most famous people we think about in the startup world, right? And Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or a lot of these folks, I think in many cases they did burn a lot of bridges, but they're also the ones who built iconic companies that people all think about. And, one thing you and I talked about on our sort of pre-pod chat a few weeks ago was like, does someone get so swept up in it? Like, would you want to be a Mark Zuckerberg in that case? Like, is that you are in your company for life? Basically, like you can't separate yourself from that. Now, you're also one of the richest people in the world and you have impact on billions of people every single day, but you're also stuck in this sort of castle of your own creation.
Right.
What is that, good or bad?
I think what I'm realizing more and more is like, in some ways, I believe that I was meant to do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I was meant to be an entrepreneur. Like I said earlier, I had this penchant to grow efficiently, and I like to take risk, but not like insane levels of risk. And so when we like make up these stories, like, oh, like, would you like to be Bezos or Zuckerberg? Like, it's just not possible. Like, it's not in the nature of us, of 99.9% of us, to do what Elon Musk has done. Like, he sold his first company for 20 million. I think he literally, I don't know, I'm kind of making this up, put all 20 million back in.
All back in
for his next thing. And he made like 200 million on the next one. And he put like the majority of that back in to do Tesla or something. I would never do that. I could not do that, and I don't know, maybe so when we're like, oh, would you want to be Elon Musk? It's not even a question we can even ask, because it's not, even if you said yes, I don't think we have the, what I mean? The nature, not the capability, the nature.
I was debating today with a friend about investing and saying how like I'm more conservative. Like, yes, I'm an early stage investor, so I'm clearly not as conservative as most people. But like when it comes to certain things, like I invested, I was holding cash. I knew COVID was coming. This is just sort of an example. I knew COVID was coming. Like you read about it, you're in the space enough. Like it was like, this is happening. This is real. And most people didn't want to believe it. I had a bunch of cash. I was ready to go for it. On the lowest day of the market, when like COVID was like real and people were freaking out, I freaking bought bonds because I was like, I'm going to be safe. This is the smart thing to do. And I bought bonds like the lowest number possible. But I literally could have bought anything else and it would have utterly crushed.
Yeah.
And I was just too freaking conservative about it. And I'm like, that's just my nature though. And you know what? It's fine. It means maybe I'm not quite as like rich as I could have been, but I'm also not stressing every day like, oh my God, I could lose everything tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, I was kind of beating myself up recently about not putting more money in Bitcoin and whatever. And he's like, well, what were you doing? I was like, oh, I wish but 2 years ago wish I had done this and that. And he's like, well, what were you doing? I was like, oh, I was running this fund and building this startup. He's like, that's the things that like, you can't beat yourself up about taking a risk on things that you don't know. Right. And it'd be ideal if we time the market, or if we, but my friends who have crushed in the market, usually have also lost a ton in the market, and they're just big risk takers. And, like I'm a big advocate of focusing on one thing at a time and, crushing that one thing.
Focus is so critical. So actually on the note of focus, question for you, going back to your point, you said sort of like, look, delegate, outsource, things like that is a key part of sort of successful, especially seed strapping businesses. How do you know what to delegate or outsource versus what to keep in-house? Because I find a lot of founders like feel like they need to control everything and everything needs to be in-house for them. And it really hurts their ability to actually focus because people don't recognize the amount of time and energy and cost that goes into hiring, recruiting, training, managing people is so high compared to outsourcing, but people just don't know how to outsource or they don't know how to delegate.
Mhm.
How do you advise people on that front?
And at Stack Commerce, at the first company, I was younger, and I was maybe like 30, early 30s, and I hired all people younger than me. Not not intentionally. It was my network, and we were bootstrapping, so we could only afford a certain level of person.
Totally.
And so I think in that environment, what is interesting is it was hard to delegate, because you were hiring people who had 1, 2, 3 years of experience, asking them to do something really specific and complex, and it was often errors. I was also not creating a lot of process for them. I was not enabling them with enough process to.
But you also probably didn't know how to do that work yourself, right? I mean, you're this young founder too, and it's like, well, I'm going to try to go build a process for something I've never done myself either. I mean, you'll maybe figure it out, but like,
Right.
it's
I was pretty good. I was pretty good at doing a lot of stuff myself. Like,
fair.
but I think I was bad at communicating, like, or I underestimated the complexity for other people to do things. You know what I mean?
So would you underestimate that? Like, you were hiring people who are smart.
Right.
Why were you were able to figure it out and they were not? Is it they did?
Well, I think it's that thing we talked about earlier, which is like I was working 18 hours a day, and I was obsessed. And for a lot of people, they're just coming in for 7, 8 hours a day. They're not obsessed. They're just like checking their email, like, oh, what am I supposed to do now? I'm supposed to do that. Okay, like da, 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 da. And then like obsession is an incredible sharpening tool. Like and when you're I do say this to people at work, like, I don't need you in the office, but like if you can just think about like how to make this process better, this product better, this flow that we're working on better, like in the shower or whatever, like that makes a huge difference. I think in people's career success and their arc of capabilities. But yeah, so in the second thing in Onward, what I've done is now I'm a bit older, more experienced. A lot of my network is more experienced, and so I've really kind of focused on hiring much more experienced people and then backfilling them with offshore talent or AI to take care of a lot of those tactical tasks. And so when I delegate to someone who has 20 years of experience, there's alignment and expectations that, hey, like, you're going to own this through and through, and they're going to figure it out. They may not know how to do it, but they're going to hire the person. They're going to leverage AI. They're going to do whatever, and they're going to own it. And I think it's just much harder with someone who's inexperienced. So it's about setting up the right team environment for ownership and delegation to work.
And how do you still decide, like, what are the things that you keep internal to the company where like, look, we need to own this ourselves versus outsource it to a third party? Are there certain heuristics you use to decide what that looks like?
I think things that are processes and tasks that are highly repetitive, low risk.
Are the things that are like core to the business, where like, this is our, like, we have to own X product thing or X go to market motion, that are critical, like that essentially unique things that only you can do?
Go to market. Yeah. I mean, go to market is one that I've found challenging. I do know people who have hired growth marketers offshore, and but I think with language barriers, that can also always be a little bit of a challenge, although it's less and less, but it still is a little bit. So I think, go to market to me is a little bit harder. There's some SDR stuff that you can definitely outsource. It's pretty easy.
And what about product wise, like for building the product, like is that stuff you feel like you have to own it yourselves internally, or do you outsource it to an outsourced dev team?
No. You got to have that in-house. Yeah. I think that the product and engineering component, I think if you're a B2B company, it has to be internal. Like, otherwise, what are you doing? I mean, that's sort of everything, right? And then I think there's been some data visualization, business intelligence type stuff that we've offshored that's been incredible. They've done a better job than the onshore people that I've hired, which is interesting. I guess I'm trying to think what else. Like support is I think most people at this point have offshored a lot of support capabilities or AI, handled with AI. So there's a lot there. Yeah.
So going back to your history a little bit, right, and sort of this insecurity and moving to the big city, San Francisco, like where did you moved? You didn't start Stack right away, right? You moved to the Bay Area. You worked for Intel for 4 years. You then go into VC, like fairly traditional path. why did you want to go in that path? And then like, what led to you saying, okay, after, I mean, I'm trying to look at your LinkedIn, like after what, 8 years, 7 years, you finally like, okay, I'm ready to go start a company now. And what gave you the push to finally get off the corporate train and become an entrepreneur? And now that being your identity that you can never go back to, probably working at some quote unquote normal job.
So I'd say, there's a saying, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like, I mean, that whole starting Stack Commerce when I was 30 was a decade in the making, right? Like it looked like I was 30 and just started my first company, but I actually had been working for an entire decade, 10 years to get to that moment. So I actually started my very first company when I was 21. I was still in college. I was a computer information systems major. So like I was slightly technical, not CS, but like close. And I launched my first e-com, like a dropship e-com site, like before that was a thing when I was 21.
Why e-commerce? Why was that an area of you're like, I want to focus on this?
It was like, I just knew that if I could sell product, like, I just like, it was the easiest thing that I could launch. You know what I mean? It was like, I just found a way to like do dropship and like, I don't know, like e-com was like not incredibly technical. And, I kind of, just sort of like a foray, like this is like, 20, 25 years ago. Right. So like back then, like doing e-com was like kind of cool, like because there was no e-com in 2001.
E-com must still be cool because you're starting your new company in e-commerce as well. Like
yeah. So did that. It failed. Got to Silicon Valley by taking a full-time job. Grew up in Indiana, a small town, like knew nothing really about tech. Like I knew, I was, again, a CIS major and, it was the .com era. So like tech was just starting to get big, but most people are still going to be bankers and consultants. Like it was very strange that I was going into tech, but I kind of was really fascinated with it from childhood. And so got out there. For me, it was like, I guess what I'm trying to say or want to say is like, it was these little iterative steps. And like, I see so many people today because it's in vogue. They're here and they need to get here. And they're like leaping up like, oh, like I'm going to grab this ledge, like, right. And they just keep falling down and they keep falling down and they're, and what I did, and maybe this is right or wrong, is I like took a step. I got myself to Silicon Valley. And then I worked at Intel for, like I said, 3 or 4 years. Hated it. Like absolutely hated every moment of it. I learned some stuff. I was in the game. I was in the environment. It got me out there to the tech ecosystem. And that was a little step. And then from there, I kept like beating my head against the wall, trying to, I didn't know how to find a technical co-founder. Like, I didn't go to Stanford, right? So like, I wasn't like a super sought after person. Like still didn't really know I wasn't running in the right circles is what I would say, right? I was kind of a business guy, just living in the city, having fun post-college. Like I wasn't technical enough to be helpful or dangerous, And so I like had to grind my way into the game. Like I'm like still on the outside of the stadium being like, hey guys, like I want in. And I couldn't figure it out. But slowly over time I did. Someone said, hey, like, well, if you want to get in VC, go back to business school. I was like, okay, I guess that's something, again, like I didn't know what to do. So went back to Duke, got my MBA while I was there. I was the president of the venture capital club, got a 1-year internship at a VC fund, a $250 million fund in Research Triangle Park there in North Carolina. Realized when I did that, the VC is incredibly boring as an associate. Like for me, I like not what I wanted to do. Actually.
Why was it so boring? I mean, why was it so boring?
Just don't do anything. You have no decision-making capability. You're just like evaluating some numbers. You're doing all the grunt work. But if that's going to be your career forever, like, hey, do it for a couple of years, grind it out, get promoted. But I knew for me, like I needed a little bit more action. And so when I graduated, it was funny. When I graduated undergrad, it was the .com bust. When I graduated B school, it was the financial crisis of 07, 08. So anyway, but I did get a job at a startup in Silicon Valley in Mountain View. And they were backed by Sequoia. And I worked there for about a year. And that year was the training ground that like I finally was in I was in with the crew. I found, Mikey Krieger, who ended up founding Instagram, co-founder of Instagram, like sat next to me for like a year. Like these were the people who were making things happen, and worked there for a year. It was incredible. I was like, okay, like I'm starting to figure this out. A year in, I get fired, just one day out of the blue, just boom,
Wow.
and I was like, oh my God. Like, and so that was a life wake up call that was like a nuclear bomb for me,
Was it was it performance, a company, your performance, or was the company not doing well?
So I was hired by one manager, and then a new head of business development was hired, and we just never clicked. I think, I could take some responsibility looking back on it, but I think, like whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter now, but like at the time I was super fired up. Thank God I got fired. Thank God I went through that, because otherwise I don't know that I would have gotten to that point where I started my company. So from there,
or who knows, you could have started Instagram with Mike. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, dude. I mean, this close. So like, except I, not as good as Kevin or whoever he did it with, but yeah. So took that fire, and I think that really did kind of lead to it. The last thing I'll say about my journey is, even at that point, I had no money. Still didn't have the idea, but I never let it go. So, I took another corporate gig, and I was a terrible corporate worker, and I was super unhappy. Like, I remember waking up being like, this is not what I'm meant to do. I couldn't stay focused on my job. I didn't care how well I did or didn't do at that, I think it was Yahoo. And I didn't care. And I wanted to care deeply about my work. I knew I wanted to care. And so like I started another company, like in it's like a Facebook feed thing before Facebook feed existed. Like, got some press and users, and it fizzled out. And then finally, the idea for Stack came to me, and it worked right away. And I wanted something, because of that prior experience. We got tens of thousands of users, but made no money. So with Stack, I was like, I want something that makes money right away, and so it came back to ecom, and the model was super profitable because we were selling digital goods and there was no inventory. And so like, that was my lesson around, wow, like finding the right business model from the beginning is really important, because I talked to a lot of founders today who come and they have, pretty incredible products. It's like, oh, hey, but we got to buy our inventory 9 months in advance, and we got to get these ABL loans, and, we got to go into debt. And then I get the inventory, and then I got to pay tariffs, and, and then if people don't buy it, like then I'm, and they're just really tough models. Right. And so, got into that model, and Stack really we did 40,000 of revenue, like month one, just kind of took off. And so, but anyway, yeah, that was my 10-year, long-winded way of saying that was my 10-year journey. Like, I guess for people that want to start a company, like, if you really, really want to, you'll know, like, if you listen to yourself and just keep going, and maybe you get it.
And then how do you go through, we've talked about this a little bit previously too in our last conversation, but like, how did you manage at Stack? I mean, you were there for what, 10 or 12 years before you sold. Like, how did you manage the ups and downs? And I know, especially right at the end, or you're starting to get, if I putting words in your mouth a little bit, so please tell me if I'm remembering this wrong. You started to get kind of tired. You're like, all right, I've been at this 10, 12 years. Like, I'm getting tired. Facebook turns off, like, changes all the rules. And now things are like, oh my God, on fire. You built this great company, and suddenly it's all stopped. Then COVID hits, it all turns around. You get an offer to sell. Maybe you sold a little bit too early, but also maybe you sold at the right time because you had waited too long. It would have all disappeared again. So like, how did you manage this bull bear market and go through that as a founder, and then keep your team energized through all of those things? And maybe one other key piece is, why did you do this without a co-founder too? And like, do you recommend that for folks?
Yeah. So on the bull bear thing, I had sort of been wondering if I wanted to sell the company for a while. So we'd sort of, talk to some strategics, like, felt that out, came, close in a couple processes, but like I said, like, it had been 10 years, and I think we had done well, built an incredible company, loved the team, but it was also just sort of like, hey, like, I'm at a point in my life, I had 3 kids. I was like, I'd love some liquidity. So like, again, I think it's about defining and knowing what you wanted. So for a number of years, I was like, well, I'm going to wait till someone buys me. I'm like, not going to press the market. I'm not going to hire a banker. Companies are bought, not sold. That's what people, hey, if you're a great company, someone's going to just come and find you.
Yep.
I think I just came to believe that that's just not true. Like, I think you can have a great company and put together a really clean, solid process and have a great outcome. And now I think it's smart to do that in the bull time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that doing that at the wrong time, because if you do it at the wrong time, you're going to get a terrible offer or no outcome. You're going to waste time. So timing is everything. And so when sales started expanding, and we didn't know if COVID was going to go forever or what. I was like, well, wow, like this is an opening for us. And to the point of being early, yeah, I do think we actually sold a smidge early, not, but like maybe 6 months early or something, 12 months early. And I think the multiple could have been higher later. One thing I would tell founders is like, leave some meat on the bone. Like that's the point about if you don't raise too much money and you don't give out too much equity, you can leave some meat on the bone for those buyers. Like make them give them a good deal. Like, like I tell people, like, don't over optimize yourself out of a deal. Like if you sell for 60 or 70, like how much of a difference would that make versus if you don't sell at all?
Right. And then your company goes to zero for some reason.
Yeah. Or you just don't sell and you have to do it for another 5 years, and it depends on what you want. Like there's a lot of people operating companies that don't want to be. They just, so I think it's about defining what you want and being prepared for that opportunistic moment.
So you went in and found the buyers. You started reaching out to folks who had maybe gotten.
Yeah, we did. We hired we went and found some bankers. We ran a process to hire a banker. We hired a banker. That banker started doing a process, and actually, a friend of a friend through YPO was like, hey, like, I was giving my updates. Hey, we're going through this process. We're about to go to market. And he's like, hey, I have this buddy of mine is a partner at TPG. Like, they buy exactly what you're kind of talking, like what you guys do. Like, you guys should talk. And so we just talked and we hit it off, and like we were very aligned. And they kind of came to us like the week we were about to have the bankers go out to everyone, and they were like, hey, like we'd like to preempt this, and here's our offer. And so we negotiated around that, and ultimately decided to take that offer. I think the idea was like a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. Like we maybe could have optimized that. Looking back, like if you can do it quickly, but sometimes the timing of how markets change is unpredictable. Like the tariffs or Fed changes, whatever, and buyers get spooked.
Yep. Do you think there's any reason why you weren't on the like TPG? Like why weren't you on their list of companies? Like were you not known to them before that?
I don't know. I don't know if we were known to them or not. I mean, I don't think those guys know every company out there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, yeah, I think to your point, like bought, not sold. Like, I think you got to find a way, we hadn't raised a ton of money. So I think if you haven't raised a lot of money, people don't really know, you're not in the, conversations. So you got to like,
you did so much to pay back if you raise so much money and unexpected, incorrect expectations, things like that. In a real way. So I know I want to be cognizant of time, but I have two key questions left. So one is you talk a lot about the hybrid founder system. Can you maybe give a highlight or overview of like what that actually means and how you use that on your day-to-day, or what you recommend to your companies you invest in?
Yeah. So I kind of came up with this term hybrid founder, and I like literally just made it up, but I like it, which is I think it's someone who is building a company or companies, and also investing. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with Onward and Open Sky. And a lot of people have been like, oh man, how does that work? How do you do that? And don't they conflict from a time perspective or whatever? And for me, what I found is that being an operator gives me the best deal flow, because I'm working with service providers. I'm working with, I'm doing this decision. Okay, hey, we need to hire a new B2B accounting software, right? Or like we need to do sales tax or whatever. Like, all right, who's in the space? And it's like old school, Avalara, and this one. Oh, there's this new guy, Numeral. They just, like, I don't know, they've been great. Like Johnny recommended them, Susie recommended them. Like, we should talk to them. I'm like, oh, well, how big are they? They're like, oh, like 2 years old, just super new, but like everyone loves it. Right. And then that turns into like, oh, let's talk to them, and we use them. They're great. Cool. Like, let's invest in them or whatever. Right. It actually happened to me early on at Stack. We leveraged a company called Teachable. This guy, Encore Nagpal, and we were customers of his. He was a customer of ours. He was raising a seed round, and like I put in a little bit of money just because we worked together, right? And so I don't think it has to be like, oh, you're a partner at a fund, and it's not even that. Just keep your eyes and ears open about the products that you love that you use as a founder, and you can put in a 5K check. You can put in it doesn't need to be 50K or 100K. It could be part of a roll up, little fund round. Like a lot of these founders do friends and family. So I think it keeps you sharp as an investor when you're operating. And then
by the way, I totally agree. I mean, I think you know my background a little bit. I mean, one, it's sort of funny how much we mirror each other. You've had more big successes than I have, but I mean, literally when I first moved out here, probably about the same time as you, worked for a Sequoia-backed company startup. I didn't get fired. Company got acquired after 18 months. And so I was like, wow, big win. But then I started doing the same thing. Like literally, I started my own company and I started investing in the founders I was meeting every day who were like, we would sit down and chat founder to founder, not about like an investor. And that's led to a lot of good investments. So very, very similar. Now I've done 200 plus investments in that sort of stuff.
What's been your biggest win?
God, what's the biggest win? A few different ones. Liddy.ai is a more recent one. Very, very successful one, actually. That's done great. They've just crushed it. And actually their founder is very much the epitome of what we were talking about. Obsessed, works nonstop. I mean, he and I sat down for dinner a few weeks ago, and he basically was like, guess how much I traveled last year? And he wasn't saying to brag. It was just part of our conversation. He traveled 230 days in the previous year.
Yeah.
And he just like on it, like skipping all the things with his fiance, doing what he needed to do to make that happen. They've crushed it. Diamond Foundry's crushed it. BetterUp has crushed it, although I'm not sure how they're doing like now with AI stuff, but hopefully doing great. Human Interest has also done really well. So 401ks, a bunch of companies like that. So
that's great, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. On paper, successful, and now some exits too, which has been nice. But I want to get back to the last sort of few questions so we can get you out semi on time. So sort of two key things here. Like if you could go back in time, they're sort of similar but maybe different. If you could give your younger self advice, like a single piece of advice, what would that be? And then my other question sort of similar to that is one piece of advice to be like a successful entrepreneur, but they might be different. Like what would you give your younger self? What advice would you say to that younger version of you, of Josh?
Oh man, believe in yourself, have faith in your capabilities, and this particular thing, whatever, this project, this product, this company may not work out, but like have faith in your capabilities to ultimately get where you want to get. And a corollary is very similar, like, trust the process. Like this is not a straight line. It's not meant to be a straight line. You can white knuckle this journey, or, I think I'm really close to believing that you can be successful at this journey without necessarily, white knuckling it. And I think that the outcome that we had would have been similar, with a lot less pain potentially.
Yeah.
Worrying about things that I could not control. I think, it's interesting. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's like, hey, continue worrying about the things you can control. Like, figure them out, work your tail off. But if it's outside of your control, maybe that's where the advice is like, look, like you can't control Facebook. Let's let's not worry about that. Let's figure it out. But like, don't beat yourself up.
And maybe going back to your examples that you said for Stack, right? You have to be in the game in the first place. So like you can't beat yourself about Facebook changing the algorithm, but you also have to still be in the game for when COVID hits, and then you can sell.
Yeah. Yeah. Good things happen, bad things happen. And I think the most important thing is staying in the game, sticking around, like being resilient. I mean, that's something that just is so important, is just being resilient. I'm really good at staying in the game. I'm great at endurance. I think the thing that I continue to work on is enjoying the game.
Yeah.
I'd love to do this, and I want to do it. I want to do it for a long time, but I got to feel good about it. Otherwise, like, what's the point, right? Like, I think that's kind of the message, is like, and I'm not saying I figured it out. I'm saying I want to figure it out with everybody out there.
I go to a little coffee shop for a lot of the in-person meetings that I have with founders, and I sit down like, oh, how are you doing? I'm like, look, I feel there's stresses that I have every day as a founder, but I also feel so privileged to like be in a place where I get to sit here and like work on my laptop in some fancy little coffee shop in San Francisco. Like that is such a privilege every day to be able to do that and like go try the coolest new AI tech or whatever. So I personally find that really enjoyable and like such a privilege compared to so many others. And yeah, like I'm still stressed about like these things aren't working. We haven't convinced this customer to convert. Like we haven't figured out that exact messaging that makes them realize what they should go do. But it's also a privilege every day to like wake up and be able to do this and have conversations with smart people like yourself who are building the next cool things. Like that stuff, that's at least for me, not to say like this, you take my advice, but like that's to me what I really enjoy is like, that's really freaking cool.
It's important to remember. It's important to remember that we're fortunate that we get to do what we feel like is our calling. And we get to do that, which is awesome. Now, do we get to win at it? We'd like to, but like, is there a place that you can get to where you can be fulfilled even if you don't?
Yeah, I think you can. I think it's possible to get to that point. You just have to be willing to think through what that means and looks like. You said almost like pre-plan, maybe the way you're doing with your coaches, or like pre-think. What does it look like if my company fails? Who am I as an individual still if that fails and that it doesn't work out? Does my family still love me? Do I still have friends? Do I still have skill set that is relevant to go do something else and helping other people out?
What has this experience taught me for whatever it is that I do next?
Yeah.
I mean, that's another big one to think about too.
Do you think though, if you're planning for whatever you do next, that you're almost giving up on the you're doing right now?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. These answers are not easy.
So to go back to like that last question, which is maybe the final one to end it, right? Or try to end it on this, and you sort of answered it, but just to see if there's anything else to add. Is there a single piece of advice that you would say to any entrepreneur to achieve excellence? What is the one thing they should do or try to achieve or be? Is it resilient? Is it something else? Like how do you achieve excellence?
Now you're going to make me sound contradictory, but like it does all begin with passion, which is another word for obsession. If you are not incredibly passionate, i.e. obsessed with your craft, I have a hard time believing that you'll be great at it, that you'll be exceptional. And so it's this balance, this dichotomy. Balance it's not about balance. It's like, can that coexist with fulfillment? And in spite of like the ups and the downs, and it's a question we'll have to answer for another time. But like, yeah, I think excellence comes with obsession. Deep passion is a requirement because you have to ruminate on it. You have to think about it. You have to want it. Like it has to be deep in your soul. Like that is absolute requirement. And it doesn't mean you have to spend 22 hours a day on it. And sleep for 2, but I think what like some of the really, really successful founders have taught me is that they can move an entire company or market or product with like just one thought. What's the guy's name in music? Rick Rubin.
Yeah, of course.
He's like, he's like, I don't play any instruments. I don't do anything. I just have taste and I express and so I think it's like that at a certain stage as a founder, you can get to that place where like you're obsessed with something. It doesn't mean you're like typing all day. You can be obsessed with an idea and your work comes out very lightly, but it could be in your head a lot. You're passionate about it. And so I think finding the nuance in these things is important because sometimes you can get, as a listener, you can get really turned off when someone takes a position one way or another way. And I think, or just like, oh, they're just completely wrong, And I think like where I'm at in my career is trying to find the nuance to a lot of these conversations.
Yeah. And there is definitely nuance in it. You obviously still have to be a passionate founder. You have to be someone who is willing to work harder than the large majority of people. Maybe not the 22 hours a day or something, but work harder than pretty much anybody. I think for most founders, the amount that probably you and I work, even at sort of with kids and all these other things, is probably still more than the large majority of people. But yeah, no, all that is amazing advice. Josh, this has been a pleasure. How can people find you if they want to get in touch? They want to learn more about what you're building at Onward. Have you been an investor or advisor or whatever else? How can folks find you and learn more?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or on LinkedIn at Payne, JNPAYNE. If you're a brand and you want to, improve your customer experience and drive more profit, would love to chat with you at Onward. Onward is just use onward.com. And then if at Open Sky, we do mainly pre-seed and seed investments in the future of e-commerce. So I'd say like half our investments are in consumer and then half are in B2B e-com enablement software. So yeah.
Yeah, no, amazing. Josh, once again, thank you. Your time is precious as a founder. All of it is. So thank you for spending a bit of it with me and my listeners.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.